nobody's
Have
doing.
you heard of this trend of what they call rawdogging a flight? I think it's a horrible word.
It's a horrible word, but tell me more.
Okay, so it's a trend I think among like some younger travelers where let's say you get on a long flight, like imagine flying from Cape Town to Atlanta. I think it's a 16-hour flight.
Yeah.
And you don't watch any movies, you don't read anything, you just sit down and you just stare straight ahead for the entire duration of the flight. Welcome to the Kingspiration Podcast. This is the place where you'll learn how to get unstuck and gain momentum in your life and business. Each week, we tackle the real aspects of entrepreneurship, personal development, relationships, and fitness. I'm your co-host, Ethan King, from Atlanta, Georgia, USA, entrepreneur, TEDx speaker, and best-selling author of Wealth Beyond Money.
And I'm your co-host, Justin King, no relation to Ethan, from Cape Town, South Africa, entrepreneur, speaker, and business growth strategist. Our journey crosses continents and cultures, sharing wisdom and experiences to propel you forward. Welcome to Kingspiration. Let's start the conversation.
Ethan and I have just been chatting about, I've just got back from a trip. Been out of Cape Town for 2 full weeks. Crazy how quickly the time goes. It's thrown me from my routine a little bit, but spent a couple of days up in Johannesburg with some clients. And then from there, spent just under a week in Zimbabwe, which was amazing. A few days in Harare to start. And then from there, went up to the mountainous area of Nyanga, Nyanga, and spent a few days on the Gairazi River, really up in the mountains. And what Ethan and I were chatting about is the idea of being able to switch off. And I was forced to disconnect because being in another country, I had no connectivity. And then being up in the mountains, that ensured that I had absolutely no connectivity, because even at the house that I was staying in, there was no Wi-Fi connection or anything of that nature. And I was quite disappointed with myself because I'd been anticipating and looking forward to the idea of disconnecting, unplugging myself from the world, from being connected to via my phone or being connected via a laptop. And when the moment came, there was almost like an anticlimax and I don't know if it was an unwillingness to disconnect. The mind was staying with it, still wondering, what am I missing? What have I not done? What have I not responded to? What is perhaps sitting in the inbox? Who has been single ticked and not delivered? Did my out of office email go out? Had all these things running through my mind, and really struggled to disconnect and really, I think, be at peace and enjoy the seclusion and the area that I was in. So I know Ethan.
So let me ask you a question. So you were forced to disconnect for how many days?
It wasn't even that long. So that was 3 full days. 3 full days.
Okay. And then what were there any negative consequences of you being disconnected for those 3 days?
Ethan, there were no negative consequences. And not only that, but 2 of those, let's call it 3.5 days, but 2 of those days were the weekend as well. So it's also, I mean, just from a work point of view, you should be very happy and willing to be disconnected on a weekend itself. So absolutely zero negative outcomes. But man, I get into my head sometimes, and that little voice gets in there. And I think part of my personality is this feeling of letting others down. And that's the crazy connection that I'll make. By not being online or not being available, who am I letting down? Yeah, silly. It's silly. So yeah, you come away from a few days like that. It's actually loving the time, but on one hand recharged, and on the other hand, you've almost been draining your battery. So charging and draining at the same time, and then you almost just come out at energy level neutral rather than absolutely fully recharged. So that was a difficult one for me. I didn't impress myself.
So in my experience, when it comes to vacations, what I try to do is make an effort beforehand to decide, is this going to be an unplugged vacation, or is this one where I'm going to just weave in work from time to time? And I find that if I go into it ahead of time already knowing and having a plan, then I feel better and I don't beat myself up. So for like two examples, we went to St. Lucia last year, and I decided, you know what, on this one, I'm going to unplug. I'm not even bringing my computer. I'm leaving it in the US, so I don't have an excuse to get on it. And of course, I have my phone with me, but actually one day while we were there, I found myself just kind of going on my phone and posting stuff to social media. And I was like, you know what, I locked the phone in the safe and just really, really connected with my environment because it was so beautiful. And it actually felt kind of weird. It almost feels like you're leaving a limb behind in the safe. Yeah, because we're so attached to our cell phones. But after a while, I just got used to it, and I really got a chance to enjoy nature and appreciate the beauty of where I was. But also on the flip side of that, like when we went to we did a Disney cruise this summer, like last month, we went to Italy and Greece and stuff. And I was like, man, it would be nice to be able to detach. But, you know, when you're gone for 2 weeks, it's like, okay, that wasn't practical given all the stuff that I have going on right now. So I did take my computer with me. But what I did was I scheduled, okay, I'm going to process emails and get back to people during this one window of time every day. And that's it. And that might have been like right before going to bed or whatever. But otherwise, the computer stayed in the safe, and I was able to like compartmentalize the different parts of the day and really enjoy what I was doing and be present.
Yeah, I like that. You know, there wasn't even I didn't even have a feeling there was anything particular or specific that I needed to be checking on. And that's the terrible thing. It's just the habit of checking rather than feeling like you need to check something specific. But to your point, it's the classic thing of idle hands. So it's needing to keep busy. And I was lucky, managed to do that. Got off for some beautiful runs up in the mountains, spent a lot of time hiking down on the river, crystal clear water, freezing as hell, but got in, braved a swim or two. So that was amazing. And in those moments, was able to be in the moment. But it's as soon as you've got a little bit of downtime where I spent a lot of time reading, and that was my go-to. I had my Kindle in my hand most of the time, but it's in those moments where we've conditioned ourselves. Like you said, it's our phones and our laptops have become an extension of ourselves. They've become a limb. And in those moments of downtime, again, also traveling now, I'm jumping around here, but to explain that point, traveling now through the airports, wherever everybody's walking and their phones are literally an extension of them. Nobody's head is up. Everybody's head is down. In every airport lounge, nobody is interacting. Everybody is either on their phone or on their laptop. It's crazy. Yeah. So we've just become so used to that the moment you kind of stop doing something and sit down or take time out, you've got to flip on the phone and start scrolling. If you're queuing to get in somewhere, you've got to have the phone on and you've got to be scrolling. Whether that's social media for some people, for others, it's checking emails, it's checking instant messages, and it's corresponding. But nobody's doing.
Have you heard of this trend of what they call rawdogging a flight? I think it's a horrible word.
It's a horrible word, but tell me more.
Okay, so it's a trend, I think, among like some younger travelers where, let's say you get on a long flight, like imagine flying from Cape Town to Atlanta. I think it's a 16-hour flight.
Yeah.
And you don't watch any movies, you don't read anything, you just sit down and you just stare straight ahead for the entire duration of the flight. And I guess it's supposed to be some type of mental toughness exercise. And they call this rawdogging. Like, yeah, it's a trend now, which I think is horrible. I would hate that.
Well, I think what it is, it's trying to elicit some form of boredom, because how do people get bored now? How is it possible to get bored in today's day and age?
Yeah, it's very tough. You can always flip open your phone and play Candy Crush if nothing else, right?
And I think that's where so much, I suppose, innovation or good ideas come from, is this idea of being bored and then letting your mind wander and starting to think and becoming creative and starting to doodle and jot down ideas, whatever it is. But we never let our minds get to that stage, because as soon as we start going there, it's, I don't like this. It's almost like I don't like this feeling. Let me unlock my phone without even putting a flipping code, then let me just let it look at my face. That's also the crazy thing. You can do it all with one hand. So yeah, that was interesting. I know we've taken a bit of a turn from where we were, but it's really interesting. So it's more in those times of where we're so used to sitting down. Now the norm would be to switch on the TV or pick up the phone or put the laptop on, and that's it. And as I say, for me, just there was a little sense of unease at times, not all the time, but yeah, man, I was bummed with myself. I was like, out of everyone I know, I love no connection. Like I'm good at this. And when the time came, I failed my own test because I left me with a little bit of anxiety.
Well, to wrap this up and give people some takeaways, so I'll give my takeaway and let me know if you agree, if you have another one. But I think the best approach is to go into it with a plan. You know, that way you don't judge yourself or beat yourself up if you stayed connected or didn't stay connected. But if you go into it with a plan and say, okay, on this trip or and during this time period, I'm going to disconnect, and you plan ahead for it, then you won't be disappointed in yourself if you actually do it. But I think it's when you go in and there's kind of that loosey-goosey, well, I'll have my phone with me just in case I need to check something, and you're probably going to check something. So that would be my one piece of advice.
I think so. So I think going with the plan for sure. And then to probably flip the feeling that I had on its head is in those moments, I would say take feeling bored as a victory, because that's kind of the intention. You really want to, and take a book, make sure you're reading, go for your runs, do all of that thing. But in the moment that your mind is getting to that place where you suddenly feel, oh, I'm feeling bored, be like, shit, that's a victory, because ordinarily I would have a phone open in front of me or something else to run away from this feeling. So when that happens, take that as a victory, make notes of it, and rather lean on that rather than saying, oh, I need to be connected in this moment.
That's a wrap for today's episode of Kingspiration. We hope this conversation sparked insights to ignite action in your life and business.
We're on this journey together, sharing our challenges and successes to help all of us take the next step towards building momentum and ultimately reaching our goals.
If you found value in today's episode, please share it with someone else who might benefit and leave us a 5-star review.
And remember to hit subscribe so you don't miss out on our weekly conversations. Until next time, keep rolling, keep growing, and keep being inspired.